All right, all right. Welcome to the Six Steel City Rings podcast. I am Ray Whiting. With me, I have Miss Leanne Lohman, Zach Franciscus, and Bob Quinn, all writers of Steeler Nation. Guys, how you all doing today?
Very good.
Outstanding.
Good. Bob, I can barely hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah,
That's much
sounds
better.
good.
Okay, good. Hey, guys, it's been a great weekend. The draft has lived up to the hype. Once again, the NFL has done a great job in preparing and getting things set up. The crowds at Detroit, they did their job in booing Roger Goodell.
Record number crowds too.
Yes. And Nashville held the record. So Detroit broke that. I think it was over 700,000, I believe.
I'll say people give Detroit a lot of trash talking, but I was there for the Super Bowl when the Steelers played Seattle, and that city did a phenomenal job having events, handling all the traffic and crowds and the influx of people. Yeah, they did a great job.
Yes, indeed.
Totally changed my opinion of the city.
Guys, our last episode, we went, we kind of got into the first round pick, Troy Fautanu out of Washington. Friday was rounds 2 and 3. Yesterday was rounds 4 through 7. And so we're going to recap the draft. And again, we're going to go in depth with some analysis as far as the picks and why. First of all, I want to give props to Leanne on her pick. Gotta give props now. So gotta give her props now because again, she picked it right, in the mock draft. Again, great pick.
Out of 6 picks, I got one we were pretty sure we were getting right.
Yeah. Guys, let's get into this. Round 2, pick number 51, Zach Frazier out of West Virginia. And let me tell you, people here in the state, they are happy about Zach going north into the Steel City. Guys, share your thoughts on Zach Frazier, please. And we'll start with the rookie, Zach.
I am so happy we addressed center. Like I said yesterday, leading up to the draft, Jackson Powers Johnson was really high on my draft boards. And the closer we got to the draft, I started realizing that might not be the case. And as we established yesterday, and it's probably going to be a pattern, if I say we should take someone, that means the Steelers should stay as far away from that person as possible.
Right.
But Zach Frazier, and I know everyone's going to talk about it, when that image of him when he broke his leg on his last college play, and he is bear crawling his way across the field just to save his team time, because it hurts, because his team needed more time. Right there, I'm like, well, you're a Steeler, because I remember in Ben's rookie year, him fixing broken nose and his ankle and all. That was the first time I'm like, oh, Ben's a Steeler. Zach Frazier is a Steeler before he even put on the uniform.
Yeah.
So I love it.
Leanne?
I agree. I mean, obviously, I had him in my mock. One of the things that I liked about him was the fact that to help his team in that game, he did everything he could to get himself off the field. You know what I mean? Which I wrote an article about him a while ago, pre-draft, month and a half ago, about that situation and about how well he fits in Pittsburgh, how he's kind of a brawler. And, he just fits that, like West Virginia and Pittsburgh have always been so close, not just geographically, but in like mindset and people and, what everybody values, that blue collar value. And I think he very much fits in with that. I saw yesterday that his brother had never been a fan of an NFL team, waiting for Zach to be drafted by somebody, which I love that you have that confidence in your family member. So now he's a part of Steeler Nation. And I thought, like, that is so cool. You've got like your family on board. You know what I mean? Like, I'm excited about the pick. I think he's going to make a big difference.
Bob?
A couple hours before the pick, I don't even think it was a couple hours, maybe it was about an hour. Mark Caboli tweeted out that if the draft falls the way that they hope it does, that this could be one of the best Steeler drafts in years. And I think we all kind of meant that or thought that initially, what meant that they had intel that Frazier might fall. And once he got past Green Bay and Carolina, then that's exactly what happened. I mean, Frazier, multiple time wrestling champion. That usually translates very well to the NFL. Um, Personally, I like my centers to play center. And that was one of the knocks I had on Graham Barton and Kendrick Green when they drafted him a couple years ago. Give me a center who plays center. And Zach Frazier is not a guard. He's not a tackle. He's a center, and he's a really, really good one. So arguably, is he the top of the class? Yeah, I mean, he's 1A, 1B at worst, and it's a perfect pick for the Steelers. He's got that mentality. He's local. I've heard some, of the people who just, I mean, we could draft Jack Lambert again, and they complain, that it's a Kenny Pickett 2.0. I mean, no, it's not. I mean, Frazier is a tough blue collar, exactly what you want in the center of the line. I think he's a starter day one. If Nate Herbig gets on the field and is snapping the ball game one, the only reason that should happen is because lingering issues from the broken leg, which apparently for every scout and every team there were none. So, barring a mistake by not playing him, this guy is the middle of the line for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Guys, there was questions about Zach Frazier and his leg. And so, but again, looks like he's 100%. He's ready to go. And from the confidence that comes out of him, he sounds like he's ready to start right now. So that's great for Zach.
And one other thing, Ray, I just want to note that the guy who everybody loved in the draft process, Jackson Powers Johnson, is now going to be a guard in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because why the loss?
This generational level center, and then isn't even going to play center. I said to somebody yesterday that I'm not putting any more in the draft. Am I putting stock in like this player? You've got 3 or 4 top players at a position, and you're saying like this one is so much better than the one that's at 2 or 3, because we watched at this draft particularly how those guys slid all around. You know what I mean? Jackson Powers Johnson originally was going to be like a top 5 pick or a top 7 pick, and then slowly drifted down the board, and then all of a sudden you saw Graham Barton come out of nowhere and surpass all of them. And so I thought, well, how much is this just like the flavor of the week, or does these rankings actually matter? Do you know what I mean? And that was when we did our mock, and I shifted who I liked more to Zach Frazier, because I just thought he was, looking at the football centers like play, he was the most pure center out there.
And
go ahead, Bob.
And the one thing I will say is, I mean, the Raiders did their best to pass the Falcons for the weirdest pick. I mean, you have Andres Thomas, who's a really good center who you just re-signed. I don't know what. And if you need a guard, I mean, there were some good ones. Arguably, a guy we're going to talk about in a little while when we get to the 4th round. So why you pick the best possible? I mean, I know he played a little guard at Oregon, but why you pick him, I don't get it.
I think it's going to backfire.
Let's hope. Just from a fan's perspective, let's hope. Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
The Wilson family and the Steelers organization has grown some. Russell Wilson, round 3, pick number 84, picked up Roman Wilson out of the University of Michigan, the national champions. And then pick number 98, Peyton Wilson. So we got a bunch of Wilsons in the Steelers organization. Guys.
Hey, Ray, we get some credit from the mock draft for Roman Wilson. We just
going to say that.
30 picks earlier than he went.
Right. I didn't want you guys had him, just a different round.
Yeah, I didn't want to my own horn, but I mean, I wanted to say that, but I couldn't, because think about this. We made a pick of Roman Wilson wrong round, but Leanne, her pick was at the exact round. So
Yeah, Leanne gets the most credit.
exactly,
You get a little.
yes,
You know
yes.
what? I think that, we got lucky that Roman fell to the third where he did. You know what I mean? I think that was a blessing. I might have to assume that the Steelers had their eye on somebody else that they figured would be there in the third and, just spent the picks leading up to it like, please, please, please let him keep falling. So,
You know, Roman Wilson, to me, he does have the potential of starting on the other side of George Pickens. Again, he has that good speed. Again, he get off the line of scrimmage. Again, he just has to learn, the professional way now.
do you think he'll give Pickens a run for his money for the number one spot? I've seen a few people say that.
My only fear, and guys, follow me on this. Pittsburgh has always been known to draft that star receiver. And when we draft that star receiver, they get the big contract, they get the big head, and it goes left from that point on. A la AB, let's go back before that, Mike Wallace. Because Mike Wallace at the time, he wanted that big contract. They offered him that 6 years, $42 million, and he didn't want it. So they gave it to AB. And so those are issues right now with the receiver situation. I believe, yeah, he can do it. I mean, he can be the number one. I just hope that the egos are left out the door. And I wish, on the side note, I wish Pittsburgh would have hired Hines Ward as a receivers coach. But that's another issue, another topic for another day.
I like that we're talking about Hines Ward because when we drafted Roman Wilson, the first thing I thought of was Hines Ward because Hines Ward was about 6 foot, right around the 195, 200 range when he was playing. Roman Wilson, I've seen him everywhere from 5'11", 183 to 6 foot, 192. So they're the similar type. And so when I think of George Pickens, Roman Wilson, I don't think of who's going to be a number one, number two. I think of Hines Ward, Plaxico Burress.
Yeah.
I think of the years that we had 2,000-yard receivers. And I'm not a big fan of the Tom Egon era in Pittsburgh. It happened and, we had fun sandwiches. I'm glad it occurred. But I remember the 2,000-yard receivers, which was unheard of for me in Pittsburgh. I didn't see the Stallworth and the Swans and all this. So this was my version of that. And I see if these guys, like you said, Ray, if the egos can stay out of it, we can have a 1A, 1B as long as they don't care who has the letters.
We can't control egos. Egos happen at every position. They happen on every team. I don't think that that's a controllable thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think for as much as it can be controlled, I think Pittsburgh does a really good job. I mean, we got the best out of Antonio Brown. And then when he couldn't hold it together anymore, we couldn't help him hold it together anymore. We always know when to cut our losses and let somebody go. Do you know what I mean? So I don't think that we generally keep wide receivers to the point that they start getting really crazy. And so I just feel like that's something that's not in our control. We have to draft talent who we think we can work with. And I think that kid's shown to be pretty mature, pretty level-headed, some real leadership in the Michigan team. I think all of those things are worth considering.
I think Zach brings up an excellent point with the Hines Ward comparison. I was honestly just about to make it. And I'll go a little further. Hines Ward is the best blocking wide receiver in NFL history. Top, period. Don't come at me with anybody else.
Right.
Wilson in college got known for no block, no rock.
Yeah.
And he played in a run-first offense. So, there's a lot of similarities. Hines Ward started as a college quarterback and was a good college quarterback, but he was a better receiver. He wasn't ever going to be an NFL quarterback, but he's a good college quarterback for Georgia way back in the day. He almost beat the Gators in the Gator Bowl, or not in the Gator Bowl, but the world's biggest cocktail party, which if you live anywhere near the SEC territory, you know how big of a deal that is. I like Roman Wilson. I liked him a lot. He gets AJ Brown comparisons. He's 5'11" and a half, 3/4, whatever you want to call him. He still gets AJ Brown comparisons. And, we know how well Arthur Smith did with AJ Brown. So there could really, and it won't be a number one, number two situation. As far as Steelers receivers with big egos, I mean, let's be honest, we're only talking about Antonio Brown. Hines, not a big ego. I mean, he was a big star, but he wasn't a big ego.
Not at all.
You know, Plaxico was kind of a knucklehead, but we got rid of him before he had his legal trouble and everything else. And should we have? Maybe not. Maybe he never gets in trouble. With the gun charges in New York if he stays in Pittsburgh. But Cowher was done with him. He was done with Pittsburgh. It was probably best for everybody to move
It
on.
was time.
Yeah, the only other guy I can really think of who kind of, really wasted his talent is Martavis Bryant. But that's a different reason. I don't think you can
Yeah.
factor in addiction problems and all that and call a guy,
That's not a diva.
yeah, that's
I think,
not
though, that I think there's a large group of fans, and I'm not saying it's any of us, who really didn't understand Juju. And so they wanted to take Juju and lump him into this same thing with Antonio Brown as this, diva wannabe player. And I don't think was who Juju was. To me, that age group that he's in, do you know what I mean? I thought stuff he was doing was very age appropriate for the age he was. And I just think there's people that didn't understand it or didn't appreciate it because they expect everybody to act like they're Lynn Swan or something. And I just don't, you know what I mean? I just don't think that's fair. I think we have to adjust a little bit with the time as fans and recognize that guys like Juju are connecting with younger fans in a different way than a Cam Hayward does. And that's not a bad thing. We need that to keep pulling in fans of all different ages.
Yeah, I think it hurt.
As we look at the comparison of the eras of the receivers, Bob, yeah, you mentioned that Hines Ward is the best blocking receiver in history. To me, yes, he is, because I think he's more notable for the Steelers as a blocking receiver, where he just lays out folks, than his possessions. Now, as you mentioned, Zach, about Tommy Gunn, I mean, Hines Ward was Tommy's favorite receiver. When Ben came to town, it turned to Plaxico. And then after that, it was wide open, where it was Antoine Randall L. and Hines Ward. So he mixed it up. He passed it around, which is great.
I think Ben's, in all fairness, Ben's favorite receiver, and when he needed a big catch, Hines was
Hines.
one of them, but
Yes.
I would say Heath Miller.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Guys, again, great pick with Roman Wilson. And again, I believe he'll be just fine in the Steel City. Just like I said, just can't wait to the season starts. Now, looking at these picks. Now, here's the big question right here. The big question is Peyton Wilson, round 3, pick number 98, who was slated as the best inside linebacker in the nation out of NC State. We drafted him, but he has some baggage. Guys, what were your thoughts when they drafted him?
Knocked it out of the park. We had talked about Jeremiah Trotter several times, and when Matt was on our podcast, Matt Piernick from Steeler Nation, we talked about Trotter being, if he's there at the end of the 3rd round, a huge value pick. Well, lo and behold, the number 1 inside linebacker prior to, the draft process gets crazy sometimes, and they make mountains out of molehills. I mean, the fact that, he has a pretty serious, injury for his ACL, but it sure didn't affect him on the field last season. And I mean, to get the best inside linebacker, even if he only plays till he's 31, 32, he only has a 6-8 year career because of the knee issues. I was blown away. I was blown away that he was available, and I'm ecstatic that we got him. Him and Patrick Queen in the middle. The middle of the defense is back.
I agree, because I felt some concern and anxiety about waiting around to find out what was happening with injuries with the other guys. Do you know what I mean? And just leaving that up to chance or to fate. And so, I think that this gives us a real shot that if Cole Holcomb is okay and can play, then Peyton can have some time to kind of ease into the system. But if not, I agree with you. I think we have a a guy who has remarkable talent. Like Bob said, he showed zero injury concerns last year playing. So we've projected this injury on, I mean, not that it's, look, he doesn't have an ACL, so that's a real thing, but we're projecting these concerns about his health onto him when he's not having symptoms. We talked about it earlier. We had Hines Ward, we had Greg Lloyd. We've had players before who've been very successful without an ACL. So I feel like worrying about something that isn't happening is premature. We had Ryan Shazier, who was in perfect health, suffer the most devastating injury a player can suffer out of the blue. So I don't know, unless there's something actively happening where you're concerned about a player. I don't like putting all my eggs into the injury basket and speaking that into existence. I'm excited for a late third round pick. I think that was a remarkable, I couldn't believe he was there. Couldn't believe
I
it.
like what you said about Ryan Shazier, because I see Ryan Shazier actually playing directly into this pick, because we all know ever since Ryan Shazier went down,
Yeah.
we've been looking for that sideline to sideline linebacker with football IQ. And Devin Bush wasn't that, whether it was the pressure, whether it was he couldn't live up to that. So this is Devin Bush without the pressure on him to be Ryan Shazier. This is a guy that can develop without the spotlight on him. In fact, a lot of people are aware of his injuries, so is coming into that without that being, a negative technically on him. We're aware of it. I like that he ran a 4.43. That's great for a linebacker.
Yeah.
And the one thing Bob said that does concern me, he is 24 already with the injury thing. So I hope it doesn't happen, but if that does end up coming back, it's a shortened time period that we do have to see what we get from him. But at this stage in the draft, you can't get better value than this. Especially, wasn't this our Kenny Pickett pick? Didn't we turn this into Wilson?
Yes.
Pickett into Wilson?
Yes.
So yeah, right there, massive upgrade. Look
Thank
at
you,
the size
Kenny Pickett.
And just one thing, Zach, I saw I saw it on X, but it was a comparison from Pro Football, the stats. Geez, it's slipping my
PFF?
mind real. No, not PFF. They make up stats. Pro Football Reference.
Oh,
But they compared like the coming out of college, all the individual categories, and I think they call it the RFS score. And Shazier was like a 993, and he was a 985. And the
Wow.
only difference between the two statistically, like as they went through, each individual category they do at the combine, is Shazier was 0.4 of a second faster than Wilson. 4.43 is ridiculously fast for a linebacker. That's faster than a lot of the corners and wide receivers.
Yeah.
So, he's a pretty good blitzer. He's a good cover guy. And let's not forget, he's sitting next to Patrick Queen,
Yeah.
who is arguably the best sideline to sideline linebacker in the NFL right now. So, I mean, maybe Roquan Smith, but I mean, let's face it, Queen is great, and I can't undersell. Cole Holcomb has injury concerns. I mean, it would be nice if he's back by opening day, because that really takes the pressure off of Wilson. You can't undersell the presence of Landon Roberts here.
Yeah.
I think he's an excellent thumper who can sit next to Queen, while I don't think Peyton Wilson is going to get held off the field for long. And I think if we go back to a Landon Roberts is that third linebacker and Wilson and Queen are on the field in sub packages, we're still good against the run in the subs. But then we've got a Landon Roberts doing what he does best, come forward, hit the running back. I just can't stress. I'm so excited. This is the best set of inside linebackers we've had in 10 years.
Yeah,
And
easily.
Bob-
I told you I
Bob-
saw that stat when we were getting ready for the show that blew my mind, which was they talked about like where we got players versus where they were ranked on the board. And he was ranked 28th overall, where we picked him up at 98th. Like you can't, I don't even know how to, it's like they forgot he was there or something. It's unbelievable.
What I like about this linebacker group is it reminds me, weirdly enough, of Dick LeBeau. Dick LeBeau was great because of what he brought to the field from his mind, but also he knew what to do with the specific people he had on the field. And at that time, we had linebackers that individually could almost do everything. And I think what the Steelers got to a point of saying is, listen, if we can't find one guy that can do everything like we had before in the Kevin Greens and the Larry Foots and the James Farriers, then let's find a bunch of guys who can do things really, really well. And if we have to, we'll rotate them. Because Bob, you just listed off so many different guys. I'm like, all those guys are starters. All those guys you mentioned are starters. So if we have Patrick Queen and Holcomb and Wilson and all these guys, we can have that revolving door that we're starting to have on the outside with Watt, Highsmith, and Herbig. So if we have this wonderful revolving doors in the linebacker, what we can do strategy wise and scheme wise on defense suddenly expands massively from what it already was, which was huge. So I like that we're getting back to that without trying to find a one guy to do it all. We're like, well, let's look everywhere and find all these guys and bring them in. And I like that approach.
You know,
Yeah, great point.
what playing the inside linebacker position, here's my analogy. And this is going to sound crazy. How important is it to play that position? Think about the queen on a chessboard. Can move in any direction, okay? But you have to be explosive, you have to be strong, and have to be fast. And that was one of the knocks when it comes to Peyton Wilson and his ability because of his injury. But again, you know, when we look at good linebackers or great linebackers, we tend to compare it to Ryan Shazier, which is fine. That's what we do. That's what Steelers fans do, because he was the last great inside linebacker for us. And so again, so we're looking at someone to replace him. We got Patrick Queen, as you mentioned, Bob. Now we have Peyton Wilson. Let's see if he can be as versatile as Patrick Queen. We shall see.
But one quick thing, Ray, on Peyton Wilson. You see this jersey right here?
Yeah.
Jack Lambert was an outstanding coverage middle linebacker.
Mhm.
Some people forget because he's so, you know, the perception he was mean and he's nasty, and he was a hard hitter. But Lambert came up with a lot of key interceptions for the Steelers. It wasn't quite as good as Jack Ham in coverage, but Lambert was excellent in coverage. 4-3, different defense. But I really like the idea of now Wilson and Queen. They are good coverage linebackers. We could and that weakness last year where tight ends were burning us.
Yes.
I think either one of those guys can drop back now and legitimately play a tight end. And another guy we got later in the draft who might factor into some tight end coverage that I think they recognized and really went after fixing that hole. And I think they have from a linebacker and safety standpoint.
Yeah.
Guys, 4th round pick, number 119. And this is where, again, let's go back to the origin of this podcast. We're talking Steelers football. I'm going to give it from a fan's perspective. You all are the writers. You all have more in-depth, more the inside stuff, the juicy stuff. From a fan's perspective, Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State, to me, he is a grunt. You know, looks like, you know, he's a blue-collar guy. You know, he's willing to put the work in. But, you know, when I look at South Dakota State, I'm thinking, is he going to make the cut is my question. Zach, share your thoughts on Mason McCormick. And if you were the GM, if you were Omar Khan.
He'd have picked somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah, so don't still put me in a front office. Just ask my perspective. Don't put me near a front office. Bad things happen.
Hey, you got the job for a day. Go ahead. Let's hear it. You for a day.
Well, first of all, I think it's important that it's not just Andy Weidel. When you talk about the big men up front, that is who you have to give a large amount of this credit to. Andy Weidel is. He's the one who was tasked with making this team bigger and stronger and grittier and nastier and move up defensive lines. And that's why Mason McCormick is good. The smaller school thing might be an issue if he was a one position player, but there's several positions along the interior that he could be a backup at. Day one, like he could be that guy that if someone goes down, Mason McCormick steps in. The small school thing, I don't think, maybe if you were on a different team, I'd be worried about that. But Steelers like those small school guys. They like the guys maybe not a lot of other people have looked at you the way we have. And especially because he's an offensive lineman, the Steelers have looked at him every single possible way, every situation he could be in and how he's going to react. And they determined this is the guy that can possibly for the future, but at least for now, be someone we can depend on for depth. So small school, I'm not too worried about it. And because Andy Weidel is in that front office and not me, I'm even more happy with it.
Bob.
When I first saw it, the collective what from Steeler Nation social media was on my mind as well. The guy's probably the best FCS lineman in the country. He scored very high. He scored better on the RFS score than Graham Barton did, who was the darling of the draft. Do I think we maybe could have, gone a different direction? Would I've liked to have seen cornerback addressed? Yes. I mean, there's been some people who've circulated you can't get a starter in the 4th round at cornerback. Well, could I interest you in Ike Taylor? Maybe, Deshae Townsend, Willie Williams, more recently Tariq Woolen in the 5th round. There are guys who you can get as a starter at cornerback. Are they falling off the trees at number 4? No, but let's face it, this is a different brand of football that gets played in college and in professional football now. Cornerback position is deeper. Now, the McCormick pick is really interesting because, number one, if you watch his tape, bearing in mind he's an FCS guy and he's mauling people, he's a bully. He plays like a bully. So now you got Broderick Jones, you got Troy Fatano, you got Zach Frazier, and you got this kid who plays like a bully. Sayamalu plays like a bully. The only guy who kind of doesn't is James Daniels. And he only has 1 year left on his contract. Do I love that we're using a 4th round pick on a depth position? Maybe there's some legitimate, after scouting him and they had him in for a pre-draft visit, maybe there's some legitimate thought from Arthur Smith and Pat Meyer that he could start. And if that's the case, James Daniels is probably a top 15 guard in the NFL. Maybe you trade him for a cornerback. Maybe you trade Dan Moore, who Jerry Dulac thinks is, going to sign some amazing, huge contract when he's gone. We don't really know what's going on there. The other thing it maybe suggests, and I thought about this after they made the pick as well, maybe their faith in a wide open passing game without Ben Roethlisberger, even with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, is just gone. They want to pound the rock, and they want 5 bullies up front to do it. And this kid fits the mold. So maybe they're going to protect Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and just say, hey, look, 20 times a game, we want you to heave it downfield to Roman Wilson and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth over the middle. The rest of the time, we're going to run the football, and it's going to be 4 or 5 yards if we're doing what we're supposed to. When they put 10 men in the box, we'll throw it over their heads until they drop back.
Yeah, I went back and watched some film of him. I watch a lot of college football. And I went back and rewatched some film of him after we made the pick before I commented, like trying to understand what exactly it was they were seeing. And I agree with Zach and Bob. I think it had Andy Weidel's fingerprints all over it, but also Arthur Smith's, because that physicality that this young man displays translate directly to their strong run game. And that's, we keep saying it. We're not even being secretive about it. You know what I mean? That's what we want to do. That's our goal. And I think the only way you're going to do that is to improve this somewhat mediocre offensive line. I mean, we've had a couple of bullies, like Bob said, but you need a whole line full of them to be able to run the ball as well as they want to. And so, I think that this is I think all draft picks are a calculated risk, a calculated gamble. And I believe that they saw something in this young man that makes him feel that he's got a legitimate shot at starting. I think they saw something in him that's more than depth, and they're hoping that he takes the place of James Daniels, whether it's now or in a year from now. I think that they think he can get there. And I mean, you see it on tape. I mean, he's got the, like Bob said, the physical presence, but he's also got good eyes. You saw him tracking as they were in pass plays, and he's got some skills, even from a smaller school.
Mm-hmm. Last 2 picks. Pick number 178, Logan Lee out of Iowa, and pick number 195, Ryan Watts out of Texas. Now, Logan Lee, I'm very surprised, but I believe, Iowa this year, good defense to me. Great defense, their defensive front. Logan Lee. I think he would be a good backup. To say maybe Cam Hayward, maybe, or well, I believe Keanu Benton will replace Cam Hayward, and I think he'll give Logan Lee can give someone a breather. And so, I mean, I think that's a good strong pick to me. Big Ten football when it comes to defensive front and everything. I think they are good standouts, and I think that's a great pick. Ryan Watts, very quiet. I haven't heard anything. Now, of course, Big 12 football, you know, it's all about the receivers, running backs, quarterbacks. But Ryan Watts from Texas to me, a little bit suspect to me. And again, I'm just speaking from a fan's perspective. Share your thoughts, guys.
I think that Ike Taylor must have seen something in Ryan Watts. You know what I mean? He's out there scouting these guys that play cornerback. He loves to brag about it on his podcast. You know what I mean? And how all the college coaches trust him. And so I thought, as soon as I heard that, I thought, well, he must have seen something in this guy. Even if they're talking about possibly changing him to safety in the pro, I think that they obviously saw something in him where they felt like it was worth the risk at, such a late pick. I mean, it is kind of a crapshoot. As for Lee, I think there's some size concerns about him. So I think he's got like Iowa had a good defense. He seems to be a hard worker, but it'll be very interesting to see where he actually winds up in the pros and how far he makes it. I think his size makes it a question.
I was actually watching the presser from Carl Dunbar, our defensive line coach, talking about Logan Lee, and he said what he liked about him is Dunbar was naming every possible position a defensive lineman could play in every technique. And he's like, Lee can play that. Lee could play that. And so he says size is not an issue. And right off the bat, so our defensive line coach is not worried about that. And it was actually his size that makes him so versatile. And he hasn't missed a start in 3 seasons at Iowa. So if you can stay on the field and you can play multiple positions, you're a good late round pick.
Well, you know what Ramon Foster always says, the best ability is availability. So there's something to that.
I like that. Now, Ryan Watts, I think I don't know how much a cornerback taken in the 6th round can do day one. So this is definitely a look towards the future thing. But I have heard a lot that don't look at him to play cornerback eventually. He's probably going to be moved to safety. So let's see. He's going to be a special teams guy. That's where he's going to have to cut his teeth in the NFL. But I'm not really sure where he's going to go. He's probably the only guy that is a prove it to me guy that we drafted that I'm really not sure about. And you got to show me why we drafted you. Everyone else, I'm like, yeah, I can see that. I'm excited about you. But I'm like, Ryan Watts, you got to show me why.
Yeah, and as far as Logan Lee goes, kind of the echo the points. He's durable. He's reliable. He didn't miss a game in college. He's versatile. He can play a lot of positions. He's definitely a good fit as a 3-4 end. He can play either side. Is he Cam Hayward's replacement? Probably not. But is he Isaiah Loudermilk's replacement? Probably. He could develop. He needs to add probably 15 pounds. And why this guy? I mean, we talk about Hines Ward not being the receiver coach. Why James Harrison isn't your strength and conditioning coach? Somebody's got to explain that to me. I mean, are there still hard feelings because of the way he left Pittsburgh? I mean, if there's a more gifted physical specimen on the planet than James Harrison, I'd like to see him. I mean, the guy is still, his workout videos are legendary. Put this kid in with James Harrison in a weight room who only works out once a week and see what happens. I mean, there are a lot of good parts about Lee he could absolutely develop in a 6th-round pick. That's kind of what you're looking for, is a project depth guy who could develop into something. So, yeah, I like that. I like the pick. We needed defensive line help. We had to get younger. I think Keanu Benton is the star anchor, kind of like Cam is now, of the future. But could this guy turn into the, hard-working opposite, probably not going to be Aaron Smith, but Aaron Smith, Brett Kiesel, quiet, just does his job, solid piece on the other side of the line. Yeah, I could absolutely see it.
Now,
Watts
another
is
thing,
really interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, another thing about Watts I really wanted to say, because I don't want to bash the kid. There is a big positive that I guarantee was a part of getting him drafted. The avatar cornerbacks that we're trying to get in Pittsburgh. Tall cornerbacks. Porter's 6'2", Trice is 6'3" when he comes back healthy. Watts is 6'3".
Yeah.
So these are tall cornerbacks that were, so if it does work out, that height is going to be a big reason that we got him. So possible big trio in Pittsburgh at cornerback if everything works out.
Well, Watts is unless something goes wrong, he's going to be a safety.
A safety.
I mean, he's a little too slow to play press corner. He could be a decent dime cornerback, maybe. He's not too bad in zone, but the bigger, faster, he can he press him at the line? Yes, but once they get by him, they're really going to get by him on the outside. So, but that being said, former Ohio State Buckeye cornerback, didn't quite work out as a cornerback, went to the Big 12, faced a little bit less competition, although, in practice every day he's going up against Xavier Worthy and Adonai Mitchell. So maybe somebody went to the pro day and said, he can't run with these guys, but he's a good hitter. He's a smart player. He's an intriguing safety, and getting him in the 6th round, kind of letting him sit a year or two behind Deshaun Elliott, maybe the Steelers like to play a lot of 3 safety. And he's bigger and stronger than KZ, who I think will keep the role going into the season. Maybe Trenton Thornton takes it away from him. Maybe Eric Rowe. Maybe this kid, although I don't think so this year. Maybe next year. He's a phenomenal get for the special teams. I could really see him having an impact and getting a uniform because of how much he can contribute on special teams from day one.
And Jerry Dulac in a Post-Gazette actually had a direct quote from Watts that I looked up, that if you like confidence, and another Justin Fields I was talking about, I like the guy who comes in and knows his role on a team. And this guy's ready to play wherever they want. His quote was, "I can play safety, nickel, corner. I feel like I can maximize my potential anywhere." They liked how versatile I was. That's why they loved me.
Herbig said the same thing last year. He said, "I'll play anywhere you want me to play." You know what I mean? I love that. If there was a common theme among all the players we drafted this year, and I don't feel like this is always the case. I feel like the kids always want to make it to the NFL. Like, that's clear. You don't put in this much hard work because you're doing something willy-nilly. Do you know what I mean? But to me, there's a big difference between the people that put in the hard work and the people that like truly hunger for it. And this is a hungry group, man. They want it collectively. They want it badly. And they want to be in Pittsburgh, which I love that. I love that.
Guys,
yeah, I mean,
this just want to bring up 2 more picks, undrafted free agents. Davon Edwards, running back out of Georgia, and Beanie Bishop, cornerback out of West Virginia. And I know sometimes when it comes to Steeler, we kind of dwell on history, kind of, and a little bit of superstition in a way. Because the last cornerback that played for the Steelers came out of West Virginia was Mike Logan. No, I think he played safety. I'm sorry. I think it was safety, Mike Logan. But Davon Edwards, undrafted free agent out of Georgia. And again, we're talking about Georgia. And this is a school that Bob loves. Bob loves Georgia. Even though he's in Florida, he loves Georgia. I know we can't really go into their stats and everything.
Well, just to be clear, I am a Notre Dame fan, but I watch a lot of SEC football.
And there's more than that, right? We've got five undrafted free agents so far signed.
Yeah, there's a quarterback and 2 linebackers as well, right?
There's I think 5 altogether. Trey Brown, the center, Dejon Edwards, the running back, Beanie Bishop Jr., the defensive back, quarterback John Reese Plummer, and linebacker Julius Welshchaw.
Oh, I'm on a different site.
It changes fast.
Yeah,
I went by Steeler Nation, so let's just hope we've got it right by what's on our tracker.
Well, looks like this website need to update their information, NFL.com, but
it changes quickly. It really is.
Yeah, it really does.
You got to have somebody like on it all the time. It changes fast.
Again,
yeah, NFL.com is waiting for Steeler Nation to say who we signed.
That's right.
Blame it on Roger Goodell. Blame it on him. There we go.
Now,
The one guy, if I can just interject, the one guy I really like out of the undrafted free agents is Beanie Bishop.
Yeah.
He's very undersized as a cornerback. He's 5'9". So do I ever want to see him on the outside? No. But I really am intrigued by the idea of him being maybe a long-term nickel, long-term dime. Dante Jackson, who we got in the Deontay Johnson trade, is one of the fastest guys in the NFL, and he can run with anybody on the outside, but he is undersized. He's 5'10", which isn't terrible, but if you look, like Zach was talking about the Steelers prototype at corner, it's noticeably smaller. So you would hope that based on how they're trying to, on the outside, looks like what they're trying to build is Dante Jackson is your inside guy. Jackson's older, so you pick a kid like this on the practice squad, let him watch, and assuming he can make the team, and let him kind of get into that nickel dime type of deal. This could be the next undrafted free agent steal for the Steelers. The Georgia running back is a really good player, but I mean, I can't see him getting on the field. Najee, Jalen, Cordarrelle Patterson. Unless he's a beast on special teams.
if Edwards gets on the field, at least for the start, it's definitely getting a special teams role. Now he'll be used to that for all of 21-22. He played in almost a complete special teams reserve role. It was only 2023 he really had a starting role. So he's going to come into that knowing and Georgia's a big program, like Ray said. So he's going to come into the NFL knowing how to earn a spot. So he's not going to come in as a star hoping, because he did lead Georgia in rushing in 2023. But that I honestly don't feel that he's going to come in thinking he's going to compete with Najee and Jaylen Warren to get touches. He's going to come in saying, I know how to earn my way, and it's on special teams. Right. And he's going to be excited about that.
And auditioning for the whole league, not just Pittsburgh.
Excellent point. Yeah. Man. That's a very good point.
I could see him maybe making an impression in preseason and being a guy who gets poached off the practice squad.
That's exactly what I think.
With guys like this, it makes the preseason game exciting, and I like that, especially since last preseason hurt me, and I need to be healed. So,
all right, guys. Here's the roundtable discussion and here's a little background to it. Social media, they have blasted in previous years in drafts, Mike Tomlin and Kevin Colbert for their picks. Given the fact that folks will say, see, Bob, one of them.
You don't have to say they.
One of them.
Bob.
Given the fact that people say that Mike Tomlin has final say-so as far as who gets drafted. Guys, comparing to this year's draft, the Steelers have addressed every need at every position. They have addressed it head on. It can't get any better than this. So my question to you is, the last, say, 5-6 years of Kevin Colbert's tenure there, do you blame him or do you super praise Omar Khan for his aggressiveness in free agency and the draft? Now, let's talk about that because, again, this is a sure sign of the Steelers changing their ways. I believe they've come out their conservative mindset. They have become more aggressive. And let's see if we can see the fruits of the labor.
I'm going to jump in first because I know Bob has a lot to say about this. I just want to say that, from my perspective, I think that the hate that Tomlin gets over the draft is just another reason for a lot of fans to blame Tomlin for anything and everything that they feel like goes wrong. It doesn't mean that I don't think he doesn't ever deserve criticism, but I do feel like there's people who are looking to blame him for stuff. They dislike him. They want him to be fired. And this is the flavor of the week for why you're going to blame him. Because we've heard the organization say over and over and over again that there is not one person who makes the decision. And short of putting somebody's nebby butt in the room with them on decision day, I don't know what else they can say to us. We've even heard stories about how so-and-so wanted somebody and Rooney overrode him, or Cowher said he wanted this, or Tomlin wanted that. I mean, so it's clear that there's conversation that happens. I don't think that there's one person. This isn't the Cowboys. I don't think there's one person that has the overriding decision. But I do think that Kevin Colbert backslid in the last several years, slowly declined of his career with the Steelers. I don't know why that is, but I do think it happened. And so I think Omar Khan saw the good. He's been there so long. And then I think he saw things go kind of bad. And so he knew when he had his shot, he wanted things to be differently. And we talked about, last time about him and Andy Weidel as the like 1-2 punch. And I think this group legitimately seems to be working to balance everybody's positives and minimize some of the ego and wants of the others.
Zach, and I'm saying Zach because I know Bob has, like you said, Leanne,
Okay.
Bob has a lot to say.
This is Bob's favorite
Bob, you
subject.
go last. Zach, you're up.
Leanne hit on several excellent things because Colbert had a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but the problem with what it seemed like in the end of it is we were picking in a vacuum. It almost felt like we were looking at either that year or that pick or that guy rather than how is this going to affect us in 3 years, 5 years. We didn't use the salary cap well. I don't feel like the last half of Ben's career was handled well in any way, and I don't know how much of that is on Ben or how much is on the front office and Colbert. But it's not just different in who we're picking, it's the whys and the strategy that's going on. And
plan.
Exactly. I do believe what happens in the front office bleeds to the rest of the team, and you could tell that with Matt Canada's tenure. Matt Canada was calling plays without thinking even two ahead. He would say, I wonder how this running play does, and then without thinking about what the fourth quarter is going to look like. It was all in a vacuum. And you can't run an NFL team like that. You can't call plays like that. You can't build an offense or defense like that. And like Leanne said, it's not one guy. It's not Tomlin. Weirdly enough, it seemed like it was a lot Colbert, but this time it's not just Tomlin. It's Tomlin, it's Weidel, and it's Khan working as a trio, knowing each other's strengths. And apparently right now, even though we know Mike Tomlin likes to have his hands on things, Mike Tomlin has apparently figured out when to take a step back. It might not be as many steps back as he should take at some points, but he knows when to let other people take the reins. And this draft is a culmination of all of that. If things are going to get better from here, I can't wait. But Ray, let's be careful on saying it can't get better than this, because that's where you get happy with non-losing seasons, and that's how you get here.
Yeah.
So let's always want to get better. Things can get much better than this. I remember Super Bowls. They can get much better than this. So Bob, have at him.
Okay, so let's talk about Kevin Colbert for a minute. And I wrote this last year actually, and here's where I think I'll defend Mike Tomlin, because I think this is where he gets an extremely bad rap, and it's Kevin Colbert's fault. Tomlin gets hired, he comes on, and the first 3 or 4 drafts for the Steelers with Tomlin and Colbert were really good. And we don't know who was picking and who that final voice is. The Steelers, Mike Florio loves to say this all the time. The Steelers don't take credit because this way nobody can accept blame, because we don't know who is doing it. Do we think Tomlin has the final say? Yeah, but we've heard enough stories from the Bill Cowher and Chuck Noll era where if Dan Rooney decided, nah, you ain't doing that, then Dan Rooney had the final say. So Art Rooney, he's the owner. He ultimately, if he puts his foot down, it ain't going to happen. Now, that being said, I think where this has really turned around is Omar and Tomlin are using their gifts. Tomlin's always been so involved in the draft process. And there's been times, especially, during this 10-year run, if you look at the drafts from 2013 to 2022 with Kenny Pickett, there's a lot of failure, folks. I mean, you can make an argument that 7 out of his 10 first-round picks were busts during that time, Kevin Colbert. So, you got TJ Watt, they're keeping one guy per draft class for 10 years. That's a lot of pressure to put on Tomlin to maintain. Maybe, some of the stuff he's done over the last 3 or 4 years has been all smoke and mirrors and tricks. But that being said, there were times during that period where he would go visit guys. I mean, he's been high on guys, and it almost became the free agent philosophy. Okay, Mike, you go identify the guys you like, and if they bust out in 4 years, we'll re-sign them, or we'll sign them in free agency. And I don't think that's happening anymore. And I think the credit has to go to Andy Weidel. He is the guy who sets the draft board. I mean, they publicly acknowledged it. He sets the draft board, and then Tomlin and Khan and Art Rooney and the hot dog vendor all decide who they're going to pick off the draft board. We don't know. Whoever was setting the draft board before Wydell wasn't doing a great job, and unless he comes out and says it differently, Colbert gets the blame for that because he was in charge of whoever was setting that draft board. Wydell the last 2 years has set the draft board. Tomlin or Khan have picked the guys that they like best off of the selections he's given them. And I think that's why we've seen two really, really, really good drafts. Is it 1974 and Jack Lambert in the third round? No. All right.
But you didn't know that in 1975 either.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, you had an
kinda did
inkling. You
when
had an
I went to the
inkling.
Super Bowl.
Yeah, you had an inkling, but I mean, it wasn't like it is now. It wasn't like it got to be.
Yes.
Much credit to Andy Weidel and his knowledge in drafting a team. He revitalized the Philadelphia Eagles, and now he's revitalized the Steelers. I hope that the Steelers will compensate him well and compensate him to the point that we keep him. Now, Omar Khan, they kept him for all these years, and Omar, he was given abilities or interview requests from other teams, and he stayed. The Steelers said, no, you can't interview him. So the wait was well worth it for Omar Khan. Let's see how it turns out for Andy Weidel, and hope he is still around.
I think you got to give Khan kudos for, maybe he was pounding the table for the 10 years before he took over saying, guys, we're screwing up. What are we doing here? These are not the guys we should be picking. We should be more aggressive in free agency.
You have
kudos
to
Khan.
Something.
Yeah, kudos.
Something. Yeah.
Well,
Kudos
I mean,
to
it goes
Khan
back
for
to
realizing, hey, I can take Andy Weidel and I can make it's a great synergy. We can really have it all. We can have aggression in free agency and pick the best possible players to help revitalize the team.
And look, if you've ever led a big team and you have, Kevin Colbert and you've got Omar Khan and you hear Khan's contributions, well, when it becomes time to replace Kevin Colbert, you guys start talking and you think that this guy is the real deal. Do you know what I mean? If not, you're going to be like, yeah, we have fresh blood. We want to wipe the slate clean. We want to start all over again. Do you know what I mean? Because I think as fans, the whispers, our biggest fear was that it was going to be another reign of just Kevin Colbert part 2. And, I don't think that's what anybody really wanted. You don't want to trash the guy because we had some good years under Colbert, but the last several, not so much. And I think we were all hoping for something different. I don't know that any of us could have expected how much better this could be, with Khan than it was with Colbert. Now, refreshed.
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, again, I'm looking forward to some football in July and August. I'm happy right now. Again, it's just, to me, this has been the best draft the Steelers had in a long time. The best draft, because again, they've addressed every need from top to bottom. I've seen some of the reviews. USA Today gave the Steelers an A. CBS Sports gave them an A+. So the lowest pick, the lowest grade on the draft pick is Mason McCormick. That right there was just, yeah.
Which probably means he'll be the best of the group.
Right. I was gonna say that splitting hairs at this point.
It was, yeah. Time will tell. Time will tell. Guys, another episode in the books. Great talk. Great talk. But before we go, what should we do?
Should like and share, subscribe,
Tell
do
a
all that
friend,
fun stuff.
send us an
Turn on your
email.
notifications.
Yep.
Yes,
Check us
yes,
out.
yes. So please share, like, and subscribe. Please, also, you can email the show at 6steelcityrings@yahoo.com. That's SIXSTEELRINGS@yahoo.com.
And you
Guys.
can read articles from me and Bob and Leanne on
Steeler
SteelerNation.com.
Nation. Check them out. Check them out. check
Download
them
the
out.
app.
Yes. Go to the app as well.
Yep.
Guys, once again, thank you very much for coming on. Again, great talk. Looking forward to next week.